Thomas would make him sick in the wood.
What say you?
Black Phillip safe, you are wicked. He told me too.
Damn your Black Phillip.
He said he put the devil in Caleb. That's why he's sick.
I'd never hurt Caleb. Nor Sam, nor thee.
You beat me.
'Twas a jest.
You said you'd eat of me.
Mercy.
Mother and Father will find out.
What?
That you are a witch.
Okay, retro go. Let's go.
Hello and welcome. Welcome and hello. This is Wait, You Haven't Seen? It's a show where we talk about movies and specifically talk about a movie at least one of us had never seen before. I'm your host, Travis, aka TV's Travis. This is episode number 346. And the movie we watched this week from 2016 is The Witch, or The VVitch, which I'll try not to do every time I talk about it. And joining me is Teresa. Teresa, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am doing well. We got connected by a mutual acquaintance, and we started talking about ideas for movies. You brought up The Witch and suggested that we should do this one. So what is your history with The Witch?
So I am currently developing my first feature film, and The Witch is a big comp for that film. It's called No One Likes a Mad Woman.
Okay.
And I do not like horror movies. I should sort of predicate it with I have sort of fallen into making a lot of horror movies, but I am a huge scaredy cat. So I remember the marketing for The Witch, and I was so intrigued and I really wanted to go, but I was such a scaredy cat that I couldn't possibly have seen it in theaters. And it just, the imagery and the just the marketing really stuck with me for years. And then when I went to do the proof of concept for my film, I kept being like, comp is a witch, comp is the witch. And they were like, my team was like, okay, what about it? And I was like, I don't know the vibes. And they were like, okay, you need to watch it. So I watched it for the first time, in prep for that short, in 2021. And I think it's really powerful, and I did read a synopsis of it on Wikipedia, so I could just sort of prep myself, because again, I'm a huge scaredy cat, and I'm trying to embrace the adrenaline rush of being scared, but I'm still not great at riding the roller coaster of the unknown when it comes to horror films.
Totally understand. I have a very close friend of mine who creates a storytelling podcast that is what they have dubbed cozy horror, and she is a self-proclaimed horror ninny. So she's scared of everything, yet she is the voice behind a horror podcast. So that makes sense. I remember hearing about this movie, and it was just at a time where I wasn't able to get out to movies, and so I missed it and then just kind of forgot about it. And then I heard about Robert Eggers with The Lighthouse and with The Northman, and I kept hearing about him and how he was at that his movies were being compared to, not the same as, but in the same direction as Ari Aster and his stuff. And then last year I went and saw Nosferatu because I love the old silent film, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go check this one out, and I loved it. I absolutely adored Nosferatu. So when you mentioned this movie, I was like, well, I haven't seen that one. And you said, this is perfect, let's do it. So this was a great thing for me because I wanted to explore more Robert Eggers after watching Nosferatu. But I purposefully have avoided learning anything about this movie prior to watching it as much as you can, being online in this day and age.
Yeah.
So I knew a couple of cast members, and I knew that it was a period piece. And that was kind of as much as I tried to find out. I tried to avoid even analysis of it with no spoilers, because
you're a much better audience member than me. I'm I need to know everything before going in.
I try as much as I can to leave my baggage at the door when I go see a movie, and it's hard, right? We bring our baggage with us no matter what. What I like to say is, every time you see a movie, you're a different person, which is why sometimes revisiting a movie can be really interesting. Because you might not have connected with it, but now maybe you do, or it's something that nostalgically you love, but you can see more of the flaws in it now as you've grown.
Oh yeah.
My big one for me is David Lynch was a director. I didn't seek out his movies when I was younger, and I didn't watch Twin Peaks and any of that because I always thought it was just kind of up its own butt, and I was like, hey, well, it's. And now I've watched some David Lynch. I watched Eraserhead. I've watched Blue Velvet. I watched Mulholland Drive, and I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? Because it's amazing, and
Yeah.
I can't get enough of it. So this was a lot of fun to explore a movie like this, and it was not. It both was kind of what I thought it was going to be, but also it surprised me at points,
Yeah.
which I thought was
I think
incredible.
I think that was part of the like reason it like became this like really like cult following. People are like, you just like have to see it because there's something about it that is hard to explain, and just the like tension that the film builds from beginning to end is something you just have to experience, and no one can really explain that or like give you the same sort of energy that you'll get from watching it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I mean, we're going to spoil the movie during this podcast. So if you haven't seen it yet, I recommend checking it out first. But the cool thing about it is a horror movie, but it's also not a horror movie. Like it's not a traditionally thought of horror movie. It's a period piece for one, which is always a big hill to climb. It's a period piece. It's an independent film. It's Robert Eggers' first feature film, which is bonkers. He had done some shorts, I think, before this, but this was the first one that he did. And I read that he spent 4 years working on this script prior to
Yeah.
shooting it. And it just exhaustive research. And I felt that research when watching this movie. There is an attention to detail in every moment in this movie that doesn't feel like it's just there to be an attention to detail, but it's all serving the story and the feel and the vibe that he's trying to create with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Because I also think the film, like the script is sparse, and by that I just sort of mean like there's not an overwhelming amount of dialogue. There's a
Mhm.
lot that is just captured through cinematics and imagery, and I think sometimes in a period piece that can sort of feel like on the nose, but there are things about this film that I don't see in other period films of the area, so it feels like it has its own really distinct voice.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it because it does the thing that I love in a movie, which is keep your story simple.
Mhm.
Don't overcomplicate your plot and your story, but let your characters be interesting and complex and have layers to them. And then they will create an interesting and layered and complex movie because
Yeah.
the story will become that through these characters. And that really came through for me in this. And it really showed that he did his research. Like, is it 100% completely period accurate? I have no idea. I didn't live back then, but it feels like it. And he went very strong with like the cinematography and the shooting of this film was something that really interested me because like I love watching Stanley Kubrick films because they're just moving art
Mhm.
in so many ways, and that's what this gave me a lot of that feel. Not the least of which was the score.
Yeah.
I had a note actually I wrote where the score at times felt very 2001: A Space Odyssey with
Yes.
that, which I loved. I love that movie and I love that score, and it creates the feeling of uneasiness the whole time. So it was this mixture of that choir and then like strings that are just constantly building to
I was just say
something.
like the vocal qualities that they have in the score are so well timed and
Hmm.
not overused when I feel like they could have been. But the pacing that comes from those like singular moments when you go back and you rewatch it, you're like, oh, these are really significant like moments that they're marking with these vocals.
Yeah. Yeah. And then on top of that, shooting it digitally, I know Eggers has gone on to shoot on film a lot,
Hmm.
but it like for a budget, shooting digitally was a lot easier because this movie was made for $4 million.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that I didn't know that going into it. I knew it was an A24, so it was an independent, smaller film, but I didn't realize it was a $4 million film until I got done and I was kind of reading about it afterwards. That blew me away. Like that melted my brain for a minute.
Yeah, so bananas to do a period piece like that
Yeah.
for arguably not a lot of money.
The Room from Tommy Wiseau cost more money than this to film. That was a $6 million budget, which is just, say what you want about that movie, but $6 million, it costs more to make than The Witch. And like everything about The Witch looks so good, and it's a period piece.
Yep.
Now, it helps that it's got a very small cast. There's a little bit right at the beginning in the village. So you have some extras there, but after that it's like 6 people.
Yeah.
And that's it. 5 people, 6.
Just like, I think man, so many animals.
Oh,
Animals and kids, they're so expensive.
oh, that's true. That's
and this
very
film has
true.
both.
Yeah. Now they were smart. They shot it in Canada,
Yep.
which helped. And again, shooting it digitally helped. But also, I thought it was really interesting. And it took me a bit to, I'm cognizant of, but I don't pay attention to right away aspect ratios.
Yeah,
But I always notice, like, eventually I noticed them. And I
Yeah.
noticed it with this was, this is, because I was watching it on my computer. And the monitor is 16:9. But the movie is, which is 1.85:1. The movie is like 1.66:1, so it's slightly boxy. Not quite. I've seen clips of and screen grabs of The Lighthouse, and I think he shot that 4:3. It's like
That
almost
feels right.
square.
Yeah.
But this was. I noticed it was boxier, and I realized at some point I wish I could pinpoint which scene it was that it kind of stood out to me, but it gave me 2 different things. Number one was any of the shots of the forest, of the wood,
hmm
suddenly became more ominous because all the trees looked taller,
Yeah.
which is, a great function of using that particular aspect ratio. And then all of the shots inside, because they're squished in and tall, they feel claustrophobic.
hmm
They feel more like you're living in a one-room shack with like a loft.
Right.
And I love that, like, because that's, again, it wasn't right away. So it was that subconscious, like it was in the back of my head that I was feeling this. And then at some point it clicked like, oh, okay, that's really cool. My then film nerd brain started to fire and realize what was going on. And I was like, this is cool. This is really smart. And then the lighting too.
The natural and the candlelight is really,
Mhm.
really good. And then I would also say, like, in going back to the commentary about the aspect ratio, I also think like production design is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Mhm.
Mostly because like when like the dad is there, he has to sort of like crouch, and the ceiling is like too low for him. So we
Yep.
get the aspect ratio is like crunching him, and then the house is also kind of squishing him. And everyone just sort of has to make themselves smaller to fit into the space based on like what the set design is, which I also think is really effective.
Yeah. And even when you have like shots of the whole family, now you've got to fit 5, 6, 7 people into this shot, which isn't very wide. So they're very close together.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you both the closeness of the family, but also then the claustrophobia and kind of this idea as they're pitting against each other more and more, but they're that close together. Like all of that really worked. And then, yeah, the lighting, the natural lighting, which first of all, having a lot of natural outdoor sunlight lit stuff is anything that I've ever shot, we had no budget to shoot. And so it was just using whatever light was available. And I know how difficult that can be. And they're going for a very specific look here. And it's like, and then I read they shot this in 27 days, I think.
Yeah. The more you dive into the production, the more you're like, how did they pull this off? It's bananas.
I don't know. Like the stars aligned perfectly.
Yeah,
27
they did.
days, and you basically have to pray for overcast every day.
Every day.
Because if you start shooting and it's overcast and then it's sunny, you can't shoot outside that day. It's not like you've got the ability to block. I mean, it's a $4 million production. They don't have the ability to like set up the volume or something and shoot in that.
Right.
And then they shoot by candlelight indoors at night, which is nuts. I haven't seen that since I did see Barry Lyndon from Stanley
Okay.
Kubrick, which He shot on some scenes that were lit by only candlelight in that movie back in the 70s. But he had on film, he had these lenses that were created for NASA that had a ridiculous aperture, and there were only like 10 of them ever made. And it was Stanley Kubrick, so he bought like 3 of them
Right.
because he's Stanley Kubrick.
Right.
Eggers doesn't have that, but shooting on digital helped him there. But like these, and even though it's shot with candlelight and these low light situations indoors like that, you can see what's going on and you understand what's happening. And I just recently watched Alien versus Predator Requiem
Okay.
not that long ago, which is the second Alien versus Predator movie. And one of my complaints about that movie was you couldn't see anything that was going on. It was so underlit. And here's a movie lit by candlelight, and I can see what's going on, and I understand what's happening because they understood, they knew Eggers and I cannot remember his director of photography, but they understood how to light it and how to shoot it properly.
Yeah, and then I do think there are a couple of scenes where you like struggle to take it all in, but I think it's because they go like really wide, and then it's like moonlight, and you
Mhm.
can't see it. Like that's like it is it is a function of the story that
Yes.
you are straining, that you are confused, that you don't have all of the pieces. So like in an instance where maybe it wasn't going to work perfectly, it works for the story, so you're like, well, that's fine because this is how I want the audience to feel.
Yes. Jaron Blaschke, by the way. Jaron Blaschke was the cinematographer.
Perfect.
And they nailed it. And you're right. There were some scenes like the shot at the end with Thomasine when she is finally succumbing to and signing the book and all of that.
Hmm.
Like it's very dark and there's things happening in the background that you can just barely see. But that's on purpose.
Right.
And so that works for me. Alien versus Predator, the problem with that was it was a scene you're supposed to be able to see what's going on and you just can't. It's just
Right.
shadows moving. They could have learned something from Jaron Blaschke and Robert Eggers is kind of what I'm going for.
Oh, thank you, Jaron.
I can't imagine trying to shoot by candlelight at all. I know digital would help, but it creates such a great feeling because this movie being set when it is and where it is such a different life from what we know today. And I
Hmm.
feel like it gives you the feeling of what that life is like because you basically have the sun during the day. And once the sun goes down, there's not really much you can do.
Right.
So you're just going to be inside and everything's going to be closed in and you don't have lights to turn on. You have a couple candles and that's it. But it's basically sun goes down. Well, it's time to go to bed because what else are you going to do?
Right. Also, shout out to, again, production design, because the continuity with candles is the absolute worst.
Oh,
And so,
I can't even imagine. Like I would hate to do continuity on a movie like this.
right.
Just
That's a bear. Especially I was mostly paying attention to it at the dinner table because the candles are so in the shot, like
Mhm.
they're framed with everybody, and so there's just like no denying where they are and maintaining that. Props to all of you because I can only imagine how difficult that was.
Yeah. Not only that, but like all this attention to detail in the look of everything, the house. I saw an interview with Ralph Ineson talking about how like all of the wood that they had stacked up couldn't look like it had saw marks because they wouldn't have had a circular saw to cut it.
Sure.
That kind of thing. Now, whether or not they fully hit that, I don't know. I'd have to go back and like fine tooth comb watch it,
Dissect
but
it. Yeah.
it all looked exactly how I would think, and it gave me that feel of, I've done enough like camping, and I was in Boy Scouts where we would go out into the woods and be in like a one room cabin for the weekend where all we had, but we would have some lighting, but like I've done a little bit, so I know at least enough to understand that how that would feel. And this
Hmm.
movie captured that so well for me. And then and plus not only that, but this is a family that is on the outskirts of being on the outskirts.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
there's that layer to it as well.
Yeah. I also think I think in playing into that is also sort of the costuming and the hair and makeup of like nothing feels beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nothing feels clean. Everything feels like of the earth and gritty and challenging and I mean obviously that's the point, but everything just feeds into that of like the house is dirty, like
Yep.
it's like there's hay everywhere, things are sort of like amiss. The kids like loft is just sort of like these blankets and pillows just sort of like scattered about, like there's just nothing tidy or clean or like nice about their life.
No, nothing at all. And the movie starts off with them basically being excommunicated and kicked out of their community. And it's an interesting thing because they're Puritans, but it's almost like they're too much of Puritans for the Puritan community, and the community's like, all right, you know what? Bye. You need to
Yeah.
leave. And this cast is kind of crazy how good they all are. And
Yeah.
I have noticed lately that a movie with a smaller cast, you get, I think, better performances a lot of times, right? Because directors can spend more time with their actors. It's not unlike education where you got smaller classrooms. You're going to get
Yeah.
better education out of that. But this was a cast of not complete unknowns, but not household names, which again helps with the budget.
Yeah.
But they're actors that understand the material. Like Ralph Ineson, holy cow, was he good in this?
Yeah.
I mean, just
I really can't imagine anyone else playing William
no.
at all. Like not only is his look just absolutely perfect, his like essence is exactly right for the duality of that character, which like takes you a really long time to see, but he is like slowly living it so that when it does finally like hit and he has like the confession in the moonlight, you're like, oh, you've been preparing me for this moment and I just had no idea because you were so subtle and you were so good about it.
Yes. First of all, his voice is unreal. Like people always talk about, ASMR this and ASMR. No, I could listen to Ralph Ineson just like read an encyclopedia and I would love that. Like he's just got that perfect voice. And you're right. He built throughout the movie to that ending point for him so well. And there were so many moments where it was a look and a reaction from him to something that was going on. And you're just like, you could see the torture and the duality in him. And it's the slow realization that, he's really not good at anything but chopping wood.
I love
Like
that.
it's
That line of hers is so perfect where it's like, you can do nothing except chop wood. And you're like, yeah, but you're like so like look at all of that wood. You're
right.
so good at
Exactly.
it.
He can do one thing, but boy, he does that good. But like when she said that, I literally had a realization of like, holy crap, she's
Oh.
right. Because everything we've seen him do to that point, he's pretty much failed at. He
Mm-hmm.
can't farm. Their corn is all rotten. He can't hunt. He failed at that, trying to shoot the rabbit. And he can't do anything. He's not dealing well with anything that's going on with his wife or his kids. But boy, that dude can chop some wood.
Yeah.
And
He's a bad
look good doing it.
salesman and he's a bad Puritan. Like
Yeah.
ultimately we learn, right? Like at the beginning we just get the sense of like, oh, he's the most Puritan of the Puritans. And that's why the Puritans are like, you know what? We're good. And then you learn that you're like, actually, he is a trash Puritan. And that's why they were like, the hypocrisy is a little too much for us. We need you to just right out of here.
Yeah. Oh, it's just brilliant. And that is such good storytelling that's how you earn a bait and switch like that.
Yeah.
Is you set us up for one thing and you slowly build to the other thing and it feels earned by the time you get there. And it was with all of these characters because Ralph Ineson was great. Anya Taylor-Joy in her first credited film role. I think Ralph had been acting for 20 something years, I think, by this point in TV and movies and whatnot. But this is really what put him on the map. But Anya Taylor-Joy, I think she was, I want to say like 19 probably making this.
Yeah, this is like this is her breakout.
And she is absolutely phenomenal throughout. She just everybody in this is a powerhouse performance, but there's something about the way she is able to both be this kind of burgeoning independent girl coming into her adolescence, but also still just a young girl that wants to be part of a family, and watching her family like deteriorate around her.
Yeah, it didn't really hit me the first time I watched it, but there's like the moment when Caleb's missing and they realize that the goats haven't been put away for the night, and her mom is like, no, don't do it. It's fine. Like, we'll wait until the morning. And she's like, no, if it would make you happy, I would do it. And you're like, oh God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And then like when she's, spoiler alert, killing her mom, she's like, I love you.
Yeah.
Please stop. My God.
Oh, there's so many just heartbreaking moments, but that was one of them when she is, because the big thing with this, and it's something I talk about a lot in movies, where communication, right? If the characters could just communicate, they wouldn't have these problems, and that's perfectly on display here. But it's part of kind of their culture almost. It's ingrained in them that they have to like push that down, because you get early on with William and Caleb when they go out hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, Harvey Scrimshaw as Caleb. Wow. I mean, for a kid his age, he had one of the most affecting moments and performances that I've seen in a movie from a young kid.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not a horror fan, but did you ever see Dr. Sleep?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
To be clear, my sister watches a lot of horror films,
Okay.
so I have watched a lot of horror films, but like against my will.
Okay, fair. So the kid in Dr. Sleep, there's a moment in that movie that is horrifying, and it's so well acted. And then to hear the anecdote on set, like he got done doing that and just hopped up and headed for the craft services table like it was nothing, is just cracks me up every time. But like that performance, and Harvey in this as Caleb in his kind of dying moments.
Yeah.
That's what I was reminded of, was that scene from Dr. Sleep. He's so good in this. But the early on with him and William, he's a young kid. First of all, the first time we see him is him basically staring at his sister's cleavage while she's sleeping, which a little creepy, a little weird, but also like he's a young kid who's starting to feel these feelings, and she's the only.
And so isolated.
Yeah, and incredibly isolated. And I both felt sorry for him in that moment, and also like, keep it under control, kid, kind of thing.
Like, hey man, it's not that kind of movie.
Yeah. No, we're not going to go there. But then he goes out in the woods and he's talking with his dad, and I like where he is at that age of like, well, why? And William doesn't really know how to deal with anything. So it's just like, oh, let's not talk about it. We're not going to talk about that anymore. And it's a very interesting give and take, because William also, as the man of the family, the patriarch of this little group, what little I know of the Puritan society is like, that was a big thing, right? The dad he ran things, and William,
not well, but yes.
Right. And Caleb is the oldest son. So he is the next in line. So William's got to teach him how to do things, but he doesn't know how to do anything. So he can't really teach him anything. But he's going to try to.
Yeah. And I would also say, sort of in line with what you're saying about communication, is like, it is cultural that they like have such a struggle, but it's also cultural that they are so distrustful that even if they do communicate, it doesn't matter.
It's very true. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Anything that is said can be questioned, and they don't need receipts. They just need like, well, the wind was going this way instead of that way, and that means that the devil is near, and therefore everything you say is a lie. So like, even if you speak the truth, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's very true. And like, but on top of that, then you compound that with like, they don't speak the truth, right? William and Caleb come back. and he doesn't want to tell his wife why they were out in the woods. And he's hemming and hawing about it. And Caleb steps up. It's like, no, it was the apple tree. I thought I saw one. We were going to go check it out. And, that comes back later when Thomasine is like, yeah, you didn't say anything then. You didn't say anything when I was being accused of being a witch. Why should I listen to you now? Just kind of all of the way that went. Like William for me was a very interesting and intriguing character who is deeply flawed, and makes some really, really poor decisions. But in the end, he understands that he understands his flaws to an extent and gives in to them a little bit.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of an interesting end to his character.
Yeah, the parents and their like paternal instincts and how they both seem to have different. They both seem to like deal with their children differently and like want to interact with them differently is so like interesting, because there are some parts of William that are a little more maternal than like Catherine. We have to assume that like in part it's because she's grieving Samuel, and there's like a piece of her that is just not able to interact, and then there's the guilt of Tomlinson losing Samuel, so now we are like holding a grudge against her oldest daughter. But even with his like maternal instincts, he also lets his kids take the fall for him like repeatedly.
Yeah.
And so you're like, do you care about them?
like
yes, to a point.
But yes, but also kind of no. Yeah, and Kate Dickie playing Catherine, the mother, and she's phenomenal as well. Her performance Catherine is a little bit more, I don't want to say two-dimensional because she's not. There is an arc there, but she is not as layered maybe as Thomasine and as William and even Caleb. But it's not a function of anything other than the way that the story unfolds. Yeah. Because the way when we meet her, she's got an infant, and she is the mom. And in a Puritan family, like the mom is child rearing, and that's basically what she does. So she spends a lot of the movie grieving. But I like where, early on it's, hey, take care of the baby. So Thomasine's taking care of the baby, and I love the peekaboo and all that. And that was one of those scenes where this movie does such a good job of long takes.
Yes.
And I really feel like horror movies and movies with thriller aspects like this really benefit from doing that, because it draws you in and it makes you pay attention. And we're so trained for the kind of the language of cinema for cuts.
Yeah.
And when they're not there, you keep waiting for it. Like I was waiting. I kept, are you going to cut? Nope. We're going to keep on Anya Taylor-Joy. Okay. All right. And it was a lot of close-ups and then wide shots. Yeah. There weren't a ton of mediums in this, I noticed. But her reaction when she does the last peekaboo and Samuel's gone. And then it's just that pan up shot, and all you see is a little bit of rustling of the one bush in the background. I was like, oh,
yeah, it's
goodness.
Great. It's such a good show. It's so good.
It's amazing. And what I love is it is both like ambiguous as to what's going on, and then the movie's like, no, we got supernatural, we got a witch. Like we're not gonna play around with is it or isn't it so much as like, and I like that.
Yeah, it does feel like kind of unique that like we as the audience don't spend really any time at all wondering if this is or is not supernatural. We know within the first half an hour. And then that makes you like really distrustful of everyone, on top of already sort of having like a bad taste in your mouth for some of the people.
Yeah.
Especially like the twins are like so sus like all the time.
So those twins, like they were meant to be annoying and suspect like that, but those kids,
especially Mercy. I mean, Jonas is sort of just like along for the ride, but Mercy, man, she sucks.
Jonas is the of this movie. Like, if you've ever seen The Sandlot, was great because he just always agreed with everybody. But Mercy, look, I don't advocate violence on children, but I just wanted to punt Mercy. Like and it was so well done.
Yeah.
First of all, with their song, their singing of Black Phillip, which we're going to get to Black Phillip here in a minute. But just those two kids did such a good job with those roles and really antagonizing Thomasin. While Caleb basically got none of that, which I thought was really interesting. Like Mercy was very much antagonistic towards Thomasin, but
Yeah.
not Caleb.
Yeah. I mean, I sort of like, I mean, the film doesn't say this. This is just like my opinion is that like Caleb is not being like forced to be their like second parent. So she has
Mhm.
like I would imagine. And then like, there's also like girl on girl, like catty shit
Yeah.
where it's like, the only thing I can do is sort of like get under my sister's skin and like annoy the shit out of her, which is exactly what happens.
Yeah, no, it's true. And that's a good point where Caleb isn't meant to be the secondary parent, but she is because she is reaching adolescence. And then there's the whole thing where like the kids listen to and overhear the parents discussing like selling her off to another family,
Yeah.
which was a thing that happened. For sure, but also terrible, right? Because they're going to lose their big sister. She's got to leave the family, like, and they're all dealing with it in their own way. There's so much going on in this movie, and I love that it is this family drama going on, and for the family and the characters, they're not sure what's happening, and then us as an audience realize, yes, there is supernatural things happening, but we don't get like we do get yes. There's a witch. She lives in the woods. She's got a hovel. Like she's what took the baby and killed the baby and used the baby for some sort of ritual, which was not fun to watch.
This is gross.
Yep, very gross. Later on, she kills the dog. Never a thing I like in a movie.
Nope. Hate it every time.
I even had a note like "Do not hurt Fowler," and then 2 scenes later, Fowler gets
And,
killed, and I was not happy.
It's always a death wish. It feels like every time there's an animal, and anytime they're like, "And here's our family dog," I'm like, I
Yep.
don't want to watch that dog die.
If you see a character talk about being 2 weeks from retirement or how happy they are, like Alien versus
I'm so
Predator,
happy
the
I could
first
die.
movie. Yeah, I'm so happy to be
Perfect.
alive. Or look at the pictures of my kids. I'm like, well, that character's not making it out of Act 2. But no, I loved all of that, and the way that the supernatural is shown is great because it's not like the 1960s version of The Haunting, which is very much a is it happening or isn't it happening kind of psychological drama. It is clearly happening, but it's done in such a way that the characters can believe that it's not.
Mm.
And I just kind of like how that was played out. I like how it was done. Where we see the witch, we see the different witches, we see what's happening to the kid in the woods when he gets separated from her, and yet you could interpret that as different things.
What's also really cool about like specifically setting it in this time period is that like the from the research that I've been doing for my film is like the Puritans are like very superstitious. Like ghosts are real. The witches are real. The devil is real. And a lot of that sits in the woods. Like the woods plays a pretty significant character and is more than just a setting. And that there's a lot of like unknown. And they touch on this a little bit, and I do think it's like a really interesting conversation of the idea that like they're all from England. Like they are not born in the New World.
Right.
And so like they are so ill-equipped to live on the frontier.
Mm-hmm.
So on top of it just sort of being a really harsh like land, they're just so unprepared for it. And then it is compounded with like their superstition and their like full-hearted 10 toes down, this is happening. So there's no And it's different from like, oh, like if this were happening set like in today, where like you'd have to spend part of the, you know, like the Conjuring series, like you have to spend part of the time convincing people that this is real. They're just like, this is real. We're moving on. It's
Yep.
not even a conversation.
Yeah. No, I love that because you're right. They are in a place that they are not equipped to deal with. And there are like that life is so difficult, right? Because they're not from a place that has the same kind of environment. They have to farm, which they probably don't really know how to do very well. And obviously they're failing at that. And the superstition angle of it, which is a thing you don't think about, but is so ingrained in them that just the superstition is real. That just happens. There are devils, there are ghosts, there are whatever. And the fact that you have that there, that they all believe in all this. And also, by the way, the movie says, yes, it is also really happening.
Yeah.
And the slow build of like Black Phillip, right? The goat, the black goat that they have. Because they have like 3 goats, I think we see, and some chickens.
Yeah. I mean, I think Black Phillip's the only male, right? I think the other ones are female.
Yeah, we see 1 or 2. I think we see 2 when there's the aftermath of everything getting killed, but either way, like Black Phillip is the twins are singing this song about Black Phillip, and I captured that because it was very creepy to listen to these 2 twins. I want to play this. Just
Black Phillip, progress out his head. Black Phillip, tonight in Queen is wed.
it was a creepy song. First of all, kids singing a song anyway is creepy, but that song in particular is, and it gets kind of almost ignored by the mother that they're singing this, in part because at this point she's grieving for the loss of her infant, but these kids are kind of just left to their own devices. And so it could be read as, oh, these are just kids doing kid things, but where did they learn this song? And how do they know any of this? And why are they talking about Black Phillip? Why did they name the goat Black Phillip? And the whole thing of like Thomasine talking about, oh, he's talking to them, and they start talking about how he's whispering to them.
Mm-hmm.
And then for that to come full circle and be like, no, yeah, that's actually happening. Like he really is. I didn't expect that. I honestly didn't see that part coming. I'm gonna wait on just a little bit going into that one, but like just the way it all builds and the twins themselves and how they go from singing the song to when Caleb gets separated and sees the young witch, which is, I'm assuming, the same witch.
I had the same, like, I thought, like, for sure it was the same witch the first time I watched it. And then the second time I was like, I don't know. This could be 2 different witches.
Yeah, it's hard to say. But that all happens. And then I love the ambiguity of it. You see like the second hand come up, like the kind of older crone looking hand. And then we go to black. And we go to black for like 10 seconds before we come back to the movie. And then it's like, what happened to him? Did what, and then we don't see him again for a few minutes. And then he just shows up back at the home, you know, in the rain, naked. And it's like, whoa.
Sometimes it doesn't feel like, it is super suspenseful. Sometimes it doesn't feel like full send horror because we don't see that. And like when the ritual with the baby happens, there's not even like the crying of the baby. You know, we could have like seen the baby, seen the knife, cut to black, hear scream, but like we're just left completely in the dark. And I feel like that's a really like unique way to take it. And then like we don't see her like grinding up like little baby bones or whatever. It's just sort of like, then we just see like this like little, you know, paste of like blood, and we're like, oh, okay. And so like it gives us like space for our imagination to run wild, but that also sort of feels very, it puts us in the mind of like Catherine, of like her mind is going to the worst possible places, you know, like she spends the whole movie being like, my infant son is in hell.
Yeah.
And what do I do? Like, there's nothing I can do. So like those choices give us this space to fill in, and we're just left with these really like horrific possibilities.
Yeah, because our imagination is going to go to way worse places than anything you could show me. And
Yeah.
Eggers understood that and really played on that. And also in his, exhaustive 4 years of research, kind of figures out and understands that like part of the Puritans, not only was it a very superstitious culture, but also this idea that everyone's born a sinner. And
Hmm.
and like William basically lives his life of, all right, I'm either going to be given the things that I need by God, or God is going to punish me for whatever I've done. And whatever happens is because of that. And I don't really like, they don't have any actual agency of their own. It's just whatever happens, they sort of take as this is the will. And
Yeah.
there's a moment with William and Caleb where they're in the forest, and William asks,
Was Samuel born a sinner?
Aye.
was he born a sinner? Like, which is, it takes me a little bit to get into that mindset, because I always think of like, no, a child is innocent. They don't know
Hmm.
anything different yet. Like, you're not born a sinner. You learn to be that. You're taught that. And that's my feeling anyway. So that was a very powerful moment. And that helped me to get to that point. That line of dialogue helped me to understand William a lot more.
Yeah, there's this like sense of like predetermination, I think it's
Mm-hmm.
called, where it's like what you do on earth doesn't matter. Like
Mm-hmm.
you are destined for one or the other, and you should be a good person just because you should be a good person, but like when it's over, like what you did that has no determining factor on where you go. You're like, well, then what in the hell?
Yeah. Well, and not only that, but it creates self-fulfilling prophecies as well.
Yes. Well, and then also like you just keep looking for things to justify what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like that you
Yeah.
can just keep pointing to things as like, well, this is a sign. And
Yeah.
and that is how the film ends where it ends.
There's so many layers to these characters and this story, and the idea of the supernatural and the superstition and all of this, and like the twins talking about Black Phillip all the time. And I kept thinking, oh, this is just going to be like, I didn't know how that was going to resolve.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, I the the shot that is just such a tight close on Black Phillip, and then Mercy just like comes in and is like, bah. And you're like,
Oh,
you are the creepiest little child I've ever seen. But that shot is so effective. And like in watching it a second time, I'm like, wow, I kind of just want I want to see the like cut scene where it's like the two of them just like making up this story.
yeah.
Because I couldn't decide on this second watch whether I believed that they just had an inkling that Black Phillip was there was something different about him, or like did they really hear him? Because
S-
I kind of am inclined to think they didn't hear him, only because there he has no I sort of let me back this up. I
mhm.
can believe that Mercy heard him. I kind of can't believe that Jonas heard him. Mostly because it feels like ultimately everything is driving Thomasine into Black Phillip's book, right? Like
Mhm.
he is creating these little moments that are just creating the domino effect to get her. And that's what he actually cares about. So like he doesn't care about the twins, but they're an easy tool for him to use.
Yeah. And I will agree with you. I do think that Mercy heard him, and I think that maybe Jonas just kind of goes along with his twin sister
Jonas
a
is such
little
a
bit.
yes man.
Yeah. Now they both succumb to like the forgetting the Lord's Prayer at the same time and going through that whole thing, which that entire scene. So after Caleb is lost in the woods, and then sees the witch coming out of the hovel, um, and then shows up back at the house,
Hmm.
and they put him inside, and he's passed out. Okay, And then you get the screaming from inside and they go inside. Once they hear the screaming and they go inside, that entire, whatever it is, probably 10 minutes maybe of
Yeah.
runtime or so, is some of the most tense, uncomfortable yet compelling cinema that I've watched in a while, because I couldn't look away, but I was also just like squirming in my chair, like, what is happening? This kid nails the whole scene. It's unnerving as all hell. Everyone in it is great. And it went in so many different directions, because it starts with him just writhing and complaining and like talking about how she's on me and she's pinching and scraping and all of this. And then the whole thing with his mouth being like kind of stuck. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's like tetanus, right? And his jaw is clenching shut. And then no, they pry it open and a freaking apple comes out.
The apple is so bananas.
Oh, and it's so layered, right? Because like the apple is, he's talking about an apple tree earlier.
Yep.
And then he kind of circles all the way back around to now he's like seeing the light, and he's having this big prayer, and he's got his arms outstretched and all of that. And this is coming on the heels of the scene where Cahterine is talking to William about her dream when she was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And her loss of faith after Samuel. Which was heartbreaking for her to learn about. Like, yeah, she had these dreams when she was younger, and now she feels like she will never recapture that level of faith because she lost her son. And I don't have kids, so I can't say what it would feel like to lose one, but I can only imagine that it would be just the worst possible thing that you could feel.
Yeah, I also do not have children. I know the pain of losing like a pet that is really cherished to me, and I can only imagine it is like a million times compounded. And
so
even that took me out of the knees.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, like going through the most extreme grief one can go through, and then your partner is like, well, you know, sometimes things like that happen, and you're like, that is not helpful.
Right. Oh, because
those were not the right words, William.
There's a part of me that as I'm watching this is like, well, yes, losing a child in this era probably isn't uncommon. However, it's one thing to have a stillborn child, or to have a child and have that child expire because of like, sudden infant death syndrome, something like that. Whatever it would be at that time, like as an infant. But this was a wholly different circumstance. This was the kid was literally like taken by something, and they have no idea what.
Right. Yeah. The unknown of it all is horrific. Right. Because like in their minds, they've just sort of been like, well, a wolf ate him. And you're like, well, that's not good.
No.
That's not the image I need to go to sleep with every night.
Right? No, because then one of the wolves going to get hungry again. A wolf ate him,
and he's also in hell. Like, what am I supposed to do with this information?
Yeah.
And then your husband is like, we were being greedy with 5 living children. That's on us, Actually, God needed to like humble us. So obviously it was going to be Samuel. You're like, that is not the answer, my friend.
No, not at all. And also like the fact that they are a superstitious religion. So it's not that far a leap to think, oh, something bad happened to this. And then the kid is in hell because he couldn't be baptized. Like, it wasn't even like he wasn't baptized. He wasn't allowed to be baptized because they were kicked out of the community.
Because again, thanks, William.
Yeah. So, good job, Dad. Really well done. It just like things keep compounding and then it culminates with that scene and how it ends, and then Cahterine lashing out at Thomasine.
Yeah.
Because sure, makes perfect sense that she would just latch onto this idea that she is, because she's got the younger kids talking about her being a witch. And the whole scene at the river was the other one, at the brook. Because here's Thomasine doing her, diligence, right? She's cleaning her dad's clothes, which at first, the scene where she's taking her dad's shirt off.
When she's undressing him? Yeah. You're like, where are we going?
Yeah, it was very odd. And then I realized, oh, okay, I kind of understand it, but also why can't he take his own clothes off? Like, this is weird.
I mean, between that and her brother just like nonstop being like, "Look at that cleavage," you're like, "What are we doing?" I'm
Yeah.
scared for her for brand new reasons.
Yeah, I'm really glad that the movie didn't go down that road. But here she is. She's down at the brook. She's cleaning, and they send Caleb down to get water. And they're down there, and he's of course one lustfully staring at her, and then also he's conflicted. He's feeling bad about that. She's trying to comfort her little brother, and all of this, and then Mercy pops up and starts talking about being a witch and having seen the witch in the woods. And all of this kind of stuff. And Thomasine doesn't really help her cause by like pushing that.
Yeah, by like goading her sister, absolutely not.
But also it fits with what's going on because she is a little bit rebellious. And so she is going to try and scare her little sister into behaving, which bites her in the end because all she does is make Mercy think more so that she is a witch.
Right.
But then how that all culminates in that scene in the loft with Caleb is just crazy because you got the twins they literally are forgetting the Lord's Prayer, and they are convulsing and writhing about as he is. And it's just, that whole scene was so compellingly uncomfortable. Is the best way I can put it. Like I couldn't look away from it, but I didn't want to see it at the same time. And I think that is some really effective art.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of think I think if someone like wanted to know like what if you could distill this movie into one scene, it is that one.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yes. As much as the ending of this that we're going to get to real shortly here is absolutely bananas, that scene with Caleb is the distillation of what this movie is.
Yeah.
Absolutely is. And, I heard a quote once that art should comfort the disturbed, and disturb the comfortable. And I've always loved that quote. It's paraphrased, I'm sure, but like I've always loved that because that's a good way to look at art. Like art is always going to be interpreted differently by different people. It's why I've enjoyed watching like David Lynch as I've gotten older, because or Phil Tippett, animator and puppeteer, did a movie called I can't remember the name of it now, but it's a stop motion animation film he made. And I was watching The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs, and they were watching that movie, and they had Phil Tippett on, and he was interviewing him. And it was one of my favorite interview questions and answers I've ever heard, which was Joe Bob Briggs says, "Phil, what is this movie about?" And Phil Tippett looks at him and says, "It's about 85 minutes." And I love that because he's saying like, it's whatever you want it to be. David Lynch was great at that. He was like, I'm just going to put something weird out there. It could be compelling. It's musically Tool is like that. The band Tool will do this stuff, and it, fans and people will talk about how deep it is and how layered it is. And it's just a 7.5 minute long dick joke in a song. Like I love stuff like that. And Eggers, the two movies of his that I have seen have done that for me. This and Nosferatu are both wildly compelling and also like, what the hell are you doing that for? And
sure, yeah.
And you can read into it whatever you want. And I love that. I love the interpretation because it can end up being self-reflective.
Yeah, I like I saw Nosferatu in theaters, mostly because I was like, well, I watched The Witch and I Survived, so I can probably handle this film. But what I love, especially with all of the, I think this is true for the Northman too, is there's like a level of respect that is given to the given circumstances of these characters, where we never feel like they're stupid for their superstitions. We never feel like they're less than, because I sometimes think that other period films sort of put that on the world of like, if they were like us, they could have seen what was really happening. Whereas
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like it talks down to the characters, but really leans into the given circumstances and helps bring like a modern audience into a world that is unknown like that.
I like that a lot because when I saw Nosferatu in the theater, there were people at certain points laughing at things that happened. And I understood why they were.
Yeah, there was like a Defoe moment where like the whole audience was like, what is going on?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And like I understood why certain people were laughing, but also at the same time I had that feeling of like, yeah, but this isn't intrinsically funny. And I think you put that perfectly, which is a respect for the characters that are going on, because it's very easy for us to look at things from the past through the lens of being in the year 2025 and our current culture. And that's not how things are. And I think Eggers in this film taking so much time to write his script and research it and create what he did, put his characters into this world in a way that is both of its time and able to be viewed through our lens in a way. Like I like it.
Did you see I'm sure you did. Did you see the note at the end of the film where like
Mhm.
they explain that like a lot of the dialogue is really just lifted from like letters of the time, so it even lends like a higher level of authenticity.
Yeah.
Because I also think that language can feel so stilted so quickly. And it doesn't. And the accents and the dialects that they choose also feel not stilted, which I think it feels heightened, but
Mhm.
it doesn't feel out of place.
Yeah,
Which
that's a
I
great.
think in part is because he, instead of like trying to reinvent the wheel, just lifted text from found sources.
Yeah, that's a great interpretation of it because I loved the language of this movie being what it was, where it feels otherworldly to us today, but we can still follow everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Because it is a very like you think of English as language is not static at all, and I mean even today's language is so different from what it was 50 years ago.
Mhm.
And so you imagine going back a couple hundred years, and then you think about the fact that like a couple hundred years ago, we feel like is so far in the past, and it's just a blip in time of like human history.
Yeah.
And how much things have changed in such a geographic or not geographically, but just like in terms of whole history, such a short amount of time for things to have changed, and yet for it to be such a compelling story at the same time is really interesting to me because there is a respect for the period and for the material that he was reading from. So I loved all of that. No, this movie was great, and then you get the ending piece where so after everything goes down, right? So Caleb is dead, and then she gets boarded up into the Thomasine gets boarded up into the barn with the goats and the twins,
And the Devil Twins, yep.
which already is terrible. I wouldn't want that. But then to wake up in the middle of the night to the witch in the room, like just sucking the blood out of the goat, which is probably the most horrifying version of the witch, although the random hair staring holes through people
Yeah.
was not. Rabbits are interesting to me because they can be these fluffy round boys or they can be these like thin hairs that look like they've seen some stuff.
Yeah, I feel like the term hair is like exactly the right thing. And I do like that they use the hair because I don't feel like it's often like the symbol that is like this a goat is like overused for the devil. So
Mhm.
to have an opportunity to have different iconography that is also very of the time is great.
Yes.
And they also have like the eyes that are very like the way they shot it, like the hare's eyes and the goat's eyes are not that different from each other.
No, because like goat's eyes are already weird because they got the horizontal pupil, and it's just not something we're used to. But then the hair, like their eyes are so on the sides of their head, and it's weird. So like that whole imagery was odd. But then to have Thomasine and the twins in the barn and the witch, who's the old hag at this point again, just in there, like, and it's dark, so you can just barely make out what's happening, but you're hearing it,
Yeah.
which is so much worse. It's just so much worse to hear that slurping sound as she's taking the blood out of the goat, and then she turns around and lunges at the kids, and then again we cut away from it.
Yep.
We don't see what's happening. We just see the aftermath. And the aftermath is a couple of goats, but Thomasine is untouched. And we don't even see the twins.
I know. I did have that thought of like, wow, we don't even like acknowledge what happened to the twins.
Nope, they're just gone. And Thomasine is untouched. And this is William coming, waking up and walking out to seeing this. And this is after the weird dream sequence.
I was like, not to mention Catherine's dream and her interaction with Raven.
Which, that whole thing was strange because the last time we had seen Catherine before that was when they're burying Caleb. And then she just goes down in a wide shot, this super wide shot. And you see her get down into the grave. And then we cut to her laying there with Caleb and looking back at William. And William just being like, I guess I'm just going to leave you here then. But we cut from that. So we don't see the resolution of any of that. And so our brain's trying to fill it in. I'm sitting here like, did he bury her with him? Did he, like, what happened here? What are we doing? And then we see her getting out of bed and there's Caleb holding Samuel. And I was like, oh, this is messed up.
Well, even before that is like, she wakes up, her hair is uncovered for the very first time, and then her father's cup is there.
Yes, that was the thing.
And you get those two things, and you're like, well, that's weird. And then you get the kids, and you're like, oh, okay.
Well, and yeah, I saw the cup, and I was like, oh, okay, what are we doing here? And she turns around, and there's Caleb, and then Caleb is whispering. And there was a moment earlier, just before this, where Thomasine talks about how Black Phillip whispers to Mercy and Jonas, and that's what the devil does. He whispers. And then immediately we get Caleb showing up whispering. I was like, oh, this is just like my skin's crawling from it. And he talks about, I've got a book. You need to sign the book. And I'm like, oh, we've touched on that already. And she's going to start nursing Samuel, which was already really weird until then we cut to what's actually happening, which is the raven just pecking at her.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. The movie is uncompromising in a lot of ways, and yet it's interesting, right? Because it's uncompromising, but it doesn't show us everything.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that the ending feels very A24. There's been a ton of A24 movies where I've been like, Act 3 will be insane. And it will end in a way that I'm like, like when I saw Love Lies Bleeding, I was like, I don't know what to do with this.
Yes.
But it's an A24 film, so I should have seen this coming.
That is probably like the tagline for A24. I don't know what's happening, but I should have seen it coming.
I should have known I was going to leave being like, what?
Because when William wakes up and he crawls over Catherine to get out of bed, I wasn't expecting her to be laying in the bed at first. And I'm like, oh, no, it makes perfect sense. She's there. But then it's the shot and you see the blood on her shirt. And I was like, okay, so what happened did happen. All right. And then he comes outside and he walks out and he just sees there's a horror show of his dead goats and the barn is all ripped apart. And there's his daughter who we've already had this whole thing of, is she a witch or not? And he's accusing her of it, but also kind of not believing it. Like, it was weird the way he both didn't believe she was a witch and then also said, yes, but you are a witch and you need to prove to me that you're not.
It's because William, at the end of the day, like, has no gumption.
Yes.
He is a chicken. And he has no, like, deep convictions, because if he did, he wouldn't have sold his wife's, like, precious silver cup.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't have let his kids take the fall for something as like banal as like, we need food.
Right.
And so it feels like a half-hearted attempt, but it also sort of feels like, well, if she is a witch, or if I can convince them she is a witch, then like, look at how all of my problems go away. Look at how I could blame everything on it. You're like, my man, what are we doing?
Well, because you got him the night right before that is him having the conversation with Thomasine. And he says, like, it's basically confirmation bias. He's like, he keeps saying, speak the truth, speak the truth. And what he's saying is, tell me what I want to hear. Tell me the words that I want to hear. And she's not following through with that. And then you get that moment where he's out chopping wood that night and he has his breakdown and he's praying and he's talking about how his pride was his undoing and that was his big sin. And then he goes to bed, and when he comes out the next morning and he sees the aftermath of everything, and first of all, great jump scare, right? Because again, long take.
Yep.
We're drawn in. I'm drawn in. I'm paying attention. I'm leaning forward, watching this happen. And then all of a sudden, boom, Black Phillip hits him from the side and gores him with his horn.
It's such, I knew it was coming and I was still like, oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, that first time, you're trained to wait for something to happen, but it's timed perfectly.
I think the framing is killer too, because he's so low to the ground. Like the impact happens before you can see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he hits him right at the bottom of frame.
Yeah.
Just perfectly. And then for his reaction, William's reaction to like grab the axe, he's ready to fight, and then he drops it and sort of accepts that, no, this is, and that's that Puritan sort of ideal of like, this is my fate. This is my punishment for what I have done wrong. On the piggybacking off of his whole admission of his pride. And so he accepts that and gets hit. And I love the imagery and the symbolism of him getting hit and gored into the big pile of wood that he's been chopping. It's perfect. Absolutely.
And
perfect.
then you get to see that too, of like, there's a lot of wood there.
Yeah. He's been busy.
Like they haven't really sort of like taken in the scope of that until he's dead. And you're like, I mean, your daughter had a point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for her to witness that too, I think was a big thing for her to see all of that. And then that dovetails right into like Catherine coming outside and seeing all of this. And the only one not touched by any of it is Thomasine. And they go right at it. And you mentioned it earlier, but I loved as Catherine is attacking her and Thomasine is like, I love you. She is.
It's so sad.
It's so heartbreaking. And she basically grabs whatever that thing is, that blade is that she grabs and hits her with. It's out of self-defense. And eventually that's the last thing is her killing her mother. And now there is no family left.
Right.
None of them are there. And I like that we don't go from that directly to her talking to Black Phillip. We get this whole moment of her in this like fugue state, walking away from it and taking off the dress that she's wearing and then sitting down at the table and passing out and waking up
Shout
at
out
night.
another long take.
Mm-hmm. I'm a sucker for long takes.
I love a long take.
Absolutely. Because
side note, do you watch The Studio on Apple TV?
I do not, but I have heard of it.
Endless. Like there's an episode that's a oneer.
Love
and
that.
It's about catching a oneer. So like if you like a long take, just like check it out because they're just endlessly long takes.
I know there was I think it was The Fall of the House of it was the Haunting of Hill House had an entire episode that's a oneer. And there are cuts and you can tell like anytime you have a oneer that's more than like 10 or so minutes, you're probably going to have a cut somewhere in there. But like the episode is set up as a oneer and it's great. And then I heard also there's a series with Stephen Graham, was it Adolescence, where every episode is a oneer.
Yes.
Like, I'm a sucker for that. I have been since I watched Brian De Palma stuff back in the 90s. I remember watching like the opening to Snake Eyes in the theater, and 3/4 of the way through that opening realizing, oh, this is one solid take.
You're like, oh wait, they haven't cut yet.
And that might have been the first time I saw that in a movie, like in the theater in 98, watching that and realizing it and just being like, I like this. So
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for that. And I'm a sucker for long takes. And this movie had those, so many of those, because
I love them.
It gives your actors a chance to do some shit. Like I don't know if you've seen X or Pearl at all, but like
I've seen Pearl.
Oh, that long take at the very end of Pearl is the textbook of like, it's gone too long, it's gone way too long, it wraps back around to being interesting again. You're looking at your watch waiting for it to be done, and then suddenly you're just enwrapped in it again. Like, that one really got me. So I loved all of these long takes. And then for Thomasine to wake up and walk into the barn and talk to Black Phillip. I didn't see how this was going to go, because I had heard the ending to this was weird and interesting, but I didn't know what was going to happen.
A24.
Yeah. No, I should have known. When she starts talking to Black Phillip and being like, I think she says,
Black Phillip, I conjure thee to speak to me.
I conjure thee to speak to me. And they put just the right amount of pause between her telling him that and him speaking.
Yeah.
There's the perfect length of pause, and then her turning away, and then he speaks. And I legitimately got chills in that moment. It just super affecting. And to never cut away from her face either.
Right. I'm gonna say the shot is just her processing all of it. And then that one shot of like, it's like a hoof and then a boot.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Like, yeah.
And there again, it's all shot by candlelight, right? So it's very dark. So you almost are like, did I see what I think I saw? And it took me a second to realize, like, you had that shot of the book and the hoof and the boot, and then we cut back to her face, and there's motion behind her.
Yeah.
But you're not quite sure what it is, and then you see the gloved hand like come on her shoulder, which that again chills. Like I legitimately shivered in that moment when I saw that hand, and the voice and the way they modulated it and added like a little whispery delay to it was just so good. And you realize that, oh, Black Phillip is basically, it's Satan, and he's behind all of this the whole time.
Yeah.
And the witch of the title is Thomasine.
Yeah.
That to me was like, oh, I mean, again, like you said, A24. I should have seen that coming. In retrospect, yes, like 100%. That's where an A24 movie is going to go. But it's so well done. The journey getting there was just chef's kiss. I loved it. So everything about this. If you are a film fan that likes a slow burn, this is the movie for you. And I think Eggers, I can understand some people not loving this. I feel like this is a movie you either love or you hate. And
sure, I would agree with that.
Like, it doesn't feel like one where people are lukewarm on it because it is so deliberate in its storytelling. And you kind of have to be into that mode, or it's going to feel like a boring movie to you. Like, I can...
Yeah, you definitely have to be bought in, and you have to sort of like be in the mood to really be with them.
Mm-hmm.
It is not like, you can't be like dual wielding a screen for this one.
No. This is a movie that you benefit from paying attention to. Like, there are certain movies that reward you for paying attention to them with like Easter eggs and little things in the background. And this is one, because of so much attention to detail in the story, and how all of those details fit into it. Like, everything from just poses when William is praying, he's putting his arms out. The way that he prays means something, with the way that shots are composed, with how they show the forest.
Yes,
all of it
I
is
love
just
the forest shots. Also, just how I feel like it's really challenging to frame all, like, so many people in such a small space, and they keep giving you different options, and they
Hmm.
keep giving you different views, and that is super challenging, I think. But they each, like, them at the table versus them upstairs versus, like, them in the little, like, bedroom area, like, they all feel distinctly different but still the same energy, which is super cool.
Yeah, and just to get the coverage that they need to make a scene work, but in the fewest number of shots required to do it.
Yeah.
Um, for a
So what happens
four,
when you have 27 days?
yeah, 27 days and $4 million to shoot, and this looks like so much more than either of those numbers. This looks like it took 3 or 4 months to shoot, and
Yeah.
it looks like it was, I would say, twice that budget, if not more. And that comes down to preparation and just knowing and having the right people in the right jobs, right? Getting the right cinematographer that understands what you're trying to do, getting the right set decorators and prop makers and production designers, and it's the collaborative nature of filmmaking.
Yeah.
And it's to make a $4 million movie that looks like so much more than what it is. I love stuff like that. And so if I had seen this when it came out, I would have been day one right there for The Lighthouse and right there for The Northman, because Eggers, to me, is one of those directors that has a vision and knows exactly what he wants to do, and he's going to fulfill that vision in a way that is unique to him.
Yeah.
And I love it.
See, you've just so much to look forward to for the next film.
I do, because I've seen this and I've seen Nosferatu, so I've got 2 more Eggers films plus whatever else.
Plus
I'm
whatever's
going to be
coming
there.
next.
I'm going to be there day one for whatever he makes next. I'm a convert. You've won a fan, Robert Eggers. Good work. But thank you, Teresa, for getting me to watch this movie. This was a perfect choice, and I appreciate
It
that very
was
much.
my pleasure. I also needed to rewatch it as I go back into pre-production for a film that is deeply inspired by it.
Well, so okay, that film. Tell us about that. Tell us what have you got going on with that? Whatever you can talk about.
Yeah, we're currently fundraising for my feature film. It's called No One Likes a Mad Woman. It is set during, like, the Salem witch trial time period, but we're shooting it in South Carolina. So it will have, like, a Southern Gothic Appalachia feel to it. And it tries to play with some of the same ideas of, it is more psychological horror than like gore,
Okay.
and sort of playing into the words have escaped me, playing into the superstition of the time. So there are
Okay.
3 main characters. 2 of them start a rumor that their friend is a witch. Their friend is then hung for being a witch, and then their friend's ghost is haunting them.
Ooh, very nice.
And you have to spend most of the film trying to figure out, was she a witch? Is this ghost real? Are they just sort of suffering from PTSD and guilt, and it's manifesting in certain ways? And there is all this confirmation bias of, like, the town is suffering from famine, and then the town is like, well, there was a witch here, and therefore God hates us and is punishing us, and that's why the crops aren't growing. And the witch has a daughter that's left behind, and ultimately the town decides that, like, the witch's daughter is also a witch, and there's a little bit of a race against the clock of trying to sort of dismantle, just trying to figure out what is truth, what is reality, to save this maybe innocent child's life, or maybe she's a witch.
Very cool. What is the title of that again?
It's called No One Likes a Mad Woman.
No One Likes a Mad Woman. All right. Well, when that comes out, when you start getting into production,
Yes.
you let me know, and I will help promote that, because that sounds really interesting. And if it's inspired by something like The Witch, then you've got a great pedigree that you're being inspired by, and it sounds really cool. I love the idea of the child, and is it a witch? Is it not? Is it just an innocent kid, or like, I love stuff like that. It's why I liked The Haunting of Hill House and
Yeah.
the 60s version of The Haunting, and this is it, isn't it idea is always really interesting to me. So that sounds really cool. I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. And shout out to the witch for making all this possible.
Absolutely. Now, if you like this show and you like this conversation, I do this every week because I have a problem and I can't stop. And I do this Sunday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time. I stream live on Twitch, twitch.tv/TVstravis. The show comes out on every Wednesday. Next week, I have a couple of very good friends, Tim Lowe and Alex Platt, are coming back. Tim has never seen Free Willy. And
oh my God.
I can't wait to show him.
What a blast from the past.
Right? Just going in a completely different direction. We're going to talk about Free Willy. Tim and Alex are 2/3 of a show called the Horse Girls podcast, where Alex and Jenna, Tim's partner, are making Tim into a horse girl. They're showing him all sorts of horse movies, but he's also not seen Free Willy. So we're going to show him that. I can't wait because they're wonderful people, and this is a movie that I have not watched Free Willy in, I would say, minimum 35 years. I'm pretty sure. So I'm very curious to see how this movie holds up or doesn't. But that's coming up next week. So I do this every week. The show comes out on Wednesdays. If you like the show and you want to back it in a way that helps me to do things like keep the lights running and do my live shows that I do at certain conventions, you can go to tvstravis.com/support and you can find the merch store and you can find the Patreon for this show and back that for as little as $5 a month. One of the things you get are my first watch diaries. I just finished watching the series of Wednesday, season 1, which was phenomenal. I really enjoyed that, and I'm about to start a new series. I might do a quick episode on. I binged through Haunted Hotel on Netflix, which is an animated series, and if you haven't seen that, that was a lot of fun. I might do a quick episode on that just because I couldn't stop watching it. I watched like 2 episodes, and I'm like, nope, spend the rest of the night watching this. So that was a lot of fun. I think it was creators of or people involved in the creation of Rick and Morty, and it has to do with a hotel that's haunted by a bunch of ghosts and the people dealing with that, and is hilarious. My favorite character in that show was Abaddon by far. He's the Prince of Hell that is trapped inside the body of a 1700s child who's also effectively immortal, and he's voiced by Jimmy Simpson, and he cracked me up because he's just trying to be a Prince of Hell, but also a small child. It was just really killing me. But tvstravis.com to find this show, to find all the shows that I do and all the things that I do. And Teresa, where can they find you?
We are on Instagram and TikTok. My production company is Maid and Prince, and that's MAID and Prince, like Maid Marian and Prince Phillip. The company's named after my Pomeranians.
Nice.
And then No One Likes a Mad Woman has its own Instagram, madwoman_movie, because we're trying to share not only updates as we move through the film, but the journey of independent filmmaking is one that is very gatekept. And so we're trying to also sort of peel back the curtain of what it is to produce an independent feature film. And then personally, I'm Teresa Cahterine, and that's Teresa with no H and Catherine with a C. And there's a lot of cross-pollination. So if you follow one, you probably ultimately follow all 3.
Excellent. That's really cool. I love the idea of pulling back the curtain on independent filmmaking, because
everything is just like it's a secret, and you're like, but why? And they're like, cause it is. And you're like, okay, well, this is fun.
That's wonderful. I 100% I appreciate you doing that. That's great. So definitely check that out. madwoman_movie, Made in Prince Productions.
Made in Prince Productions. Yep.
Perfect. Check those out. Teresa, thank you so much. We'll have to do this again.
Travis,
I'd love
thank
to
you.
have you back.
I would love that.
Excellent. So until next time, until Free Willy, just remember, everyone, to enjoy your movies. And look, everything's weird out there, but let's be excellent to each other. All right, this has been